We were told that $1.5 million was the magic number for retirement. But after hitting that and walking away at age 42, we realized that chasing that big round number was actually just a massive trap, especially when we have 4 kids and we have inflation looming.
Yeah, so today we're breaking down why the super saver mindset is actually stealing your best years and the specific math we use to stay retired without living in fear of a market crash.
So if you're stuck in that one more year cycle like we were, you need to hear this. Let's dive in together. Welcome back to Our Money Quest. Today we're tackling a very controversial idea: why saving over $1.5 million for retirement might actually be a huge mistake.
Now wait, we aren't saying that having money is bad. We have 4 kids under 9. We know how expensive life is and it can get. But what we see and what we felt ourselves before retiring at 42 is that many people never stop playing the accumulation game.
So the problem isn't just the money, it's the mindset. If you've been spending over 20 years maxing out your 401k and obsessing over your investments to get it just right, like we have, it's incredibly hard to flip that switch from how much can I save to how does this money actually support our life right now?
Yeah, so let's look at the data. The US median household income is around $83,000, and this is in 2026. At a $1.5 million portfolio using a 5% withdrawal rate, this gives you $75,000. Add in even a modest Social Security benefit later in life, and you've already matched the average American lifestyle.
But here's where people get stuck: inflation. People see that $75,000 and they think, okay, 10 years won't buy what it does today. And they're right, but if we account for a 3% inflation rate, your $75,000 lifestyle today will cost about $100,000 in 10 years.
So the natural reaction is to say, okay, I need $2 million or $2.5 million. We fixate on these big round numbers when we're looking at that.
It's what Benjamin Brandt calls accuracy by volume. We don't know the exact number, so we just keep throwing money at the problem. But if we're waiting for the number that's inflation-proof and recession-proof and emergency-proof, you might just find yourself working until you're 70, trading your healthiest years for a slightly larger number on a screen.
We've seen this happen. Someone hits their $1.5 million goal on a Friday. They're ready to put in their notice at work. Then Monday morning happens, the market pulls back by 3%, and suddenly they have $1,455,000.
And they do what everybody else does. They freak out and they think, I can't retire until I get to 1.5 specifically. But honestly, is there a meaningful lifestyle difference between 1.45 and 1.5 million? No.
Especially if you have a flexible plan. For us, living in Charleston, living in South Carolina, we manage our expenses pretty tightly. We've looked at tax loss harvesting and expense optimization. We really focus on our grocery budget and trying to maximize where our money goes on that. But if the market dips, we don't panic because our safety isn't in round numbers. It's in our ability to adjust.
So if your retirement only works when the market is at an all-time high, your plan really doesn't work at all. The market moves every day, and you have to be comfortable with close enough and realize that that net worth number also changes every day, and it changes over time. Sometimes the market's going to be down, sometimes it's going to be up, and you're going to have to find a way to get used to that. We had to go through the 2022 market crash, and we saw our net worth go from like 1.4 or 5 million, and then it went all the way down to like 750, 800,000, and that was pretty tough to stomach that loss. I mean, to all of a sudden temporarily be down multiple years' salary and years that we spent saving that money, and then watch it go down temporarily. Luckily for us, it did come back up. With anybody that invests in index funds and dollar cost averaging, that's kind of the way it goes. But you do have to be comfortable and know that that is a variable number.
And that's why you have a plan. And that's why you have those pockets of money, the emergency fund, and then the money to live off of, so that when that does happen. So there's a psychological phenomenon that they call doomstacking. It's when you take every possible retirement risk, inflation, a market crash, higher taxes, healthcare costs, and assume they will all hit you at the exact same time during your first week of retirement.
And we are guilty at this. I can't tell you how many times I did like back testing and Monte Carlo simulations to see what our retirement would look like, how much we need. how tweaking our housing and vehicle costs and all the main costs that we have, how tweaking those numbers would affect us long term, like 20, 30, 40 years out in the future. So, and I've also spent many years in project management, so I'm really wired to think about the risks and think about the things that could happen in the future. So I'd look at our portfolio and think, what if inflation hits 9% again, while the S&P also coincidentally drops 20%? And then, by the way, our citrus trees die, the deer ate our blackberries, which they usually do, and the 3D printer breaks at the same time. Then what do we do?
It leads to the one more year syndrome. You work one more year to be safe, and then a new risk appears. So you work another year and you continue that cycle where you're like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And then something else happens.
We have to account for inflation. That's a real factor. But we also have to account for something else that I don't really hear anybody else on YouTube or in the financial world talking about, and that's inflation of age. So that's your ability to hike, your ability to travel with your kids, and start a new business if that's something that you want to pursue. All that stuff has a shelf life, and we really don't know how long you have before those things go, like your ability to hike and do some of those things, physical things or sicknesses. You just never know what's coming for you. So the point is that you can't buy back your 40s. It doesn't matter how much money you have, even if you're Elon Musk. When you're 70, no matter how much you have saved.
So what's the solution here? We suggest moving away from a fixed 4% or a 5% withdrawal rate. Life has seasons and it has ups and downs.
Right, so think in ranges. In our go-go years right now, the kids are young and we're planning road trips to the Pacific Northwest. We might spend more. Maybe we're at the top of our range right now though.
And in years where the market is down or we're hunkering down at home, we move to the lower end of our range. This flexibility is much more powerful than just having an extra $500,000 in the bank.
Plus, we look for margin. We're renovating a rental unit at our house right now. We're running our brick quest and we're doing these things, these kind of businesses on the side to generate this active income streams. These provide a buffer against inflation that a static pile of cash just can't do. So another thing we should talk about is how many people we've talked about that are interested in the FIRE movement, interested in financial independence, and they haven't even really figured out what their budget's going to be. And they may have an idea of what their budget's going to be in retirement, but they're not practicing that now. They haven't necessarily lived off of that budget for 1 year to see if that's actually going to work. So I think that's one of the things that happen with this is you keep looking at having that larger number, but you're not really looking at the other side of the equation, which is having a budget, controlling your spending, making changes in your life to reduce your costs. It seems like people always want to look at making more money. How can I make more? How can I get promoted? How can I get that next job? But what they should also be looking at, perhaps more, is thinking about the inflation of their age and then thinking about what can they do to reduce their costs so they don't need so much money in retirement.
And really, how much do we need? Do we need the exact amount that you're living off of now? Like, do you really need all the things that you're buying with the high salaries? Because are you just living in that lifestyle creep where because you make this amount of money, you're gonna buy these things?
I know.
So like, if you really just set it aside, do you need those? Is it a necessity versus is it a lifestyle creep of like, because you make that, you're following all these other people that make it, and you're looking at the same people, whether it be at your job now, or maybe they live in your neighborhood, or maybe they're just friends or acquaintances or family members, and you're like, because I make this, I can do this. But if you're in retirement, you have to pull that back, and now you need to practice it.
So I think what we're saying as part of this video is like, is it really that you need to save up more money and that you don't have enough, and that's why people always shoot for way over 1.5 million? Or is it that they're not reducing their costs and not even thinking about or putting into practice a budget? So something to be honest about and something to really think about.
The question we want to leave you with is, if you're chasing that next round number, what freedom are you delaying right now?
Are you trading the shiniest of your golden years, the first 10 years out of retirement, for a number? Saving over 1.5 million isn't necessarily a mistake, but saving it without intention or out of fear is.
So if you want to see how we manage our family of 6 on our quest for financial independence, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you like this, share this with others. We really want this to be a topic of discussion. And I know, again, it's kind of controversial saying like you don't necessarily like saving over 1.5 million is a mistake. It's not necessarily a mistake, but again, it's like, what do you really need?
Yeah.
And how can you make this possible for your life and still gain all the things that you want?
So think about that. We'll see you guys in the next video. Keep seeking, keep saving, and don't forget to live in the meantime. Bye, guys.